So after the kids went to bed, Molly and I realized that we have some food that we bought that's going to go bad, and so it's time to do something with it. Some meal prep, maybe freeze some stuff. And talking about food and everything that's going on has really got me thinking. Jim Bob's sermon, the Connect series, the Pandemic Church is really timely. I mean, obviously it's specifically for what's going on in the world right now, but it's got me thinking about even the little things in life. In a lot of ways, we're like the first church. They couldn't meet together in large groups for safety reasons. If they were being persecuted by the Jews and then persecuted by the Romans, and so it really kept their meetings to a smaller size. I think this is going to be sticking.
You cooked brats earlier.
Yes, cooked brats earlier. No, we just keep it like this. Brats and cabbage, 1 large onion. So those first early church meetings, I guess you could say, we have some pictures in the Bible of what those look like. When it talks about people bringing songs, and that's why we have songs during our service. It speaks about people, sharing a word, and that's traditionally why we have, a pastor give some kind of sermon. For all accounts we can tell, they also more than likely shared in a meal. They would get together and they would break bread together, and that was in honor of kind of the establishment of that gathering, that the meal that we refer to as the Last Supper. Jesus got together in that upper room with his disciples, and they were celebrating the Passover feast together, which involved a lot of eating and a lot of drinking and a lot of celebrating their deliverance from bondage in Egypt. When he broke the bread and when he prayed over it, like many men were doing that night in many Jewish homes, he told them that every time they broke bread, they should do that in remembrance of what he was about to do, his sacrifice on the cross. And so as far as we can tell, when the early church got together, they shared in a meal.
Oh, okay, what you got right there?
1 head of cabbage sliced. So it really didn't matter if you were a Christian in Jerusalem, Christian in Rome. You would get together and you would have church. A small group, a meal, a song, a word, some catching up. And it's important that we maintain that community, that communion. In fact, we can even see in the early church, there were some people who started feeling like maybe that gathering together wasn't quite as important, and that was addressed. The writer to the Hebrews says something about it in chapter 10. Where did I put my Bible? I've got a Bible. In Hebrews chapter 10, verse 25, he chose to be mistreated. No, that's not right. That's 11. Here it is in Hebrews 10:24. It says, "And let us consider how we may spur one another on towards love and good deeds. Let us not give up meeting together, as some are in the habit of doing, but let us encourage one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching." So we get this idea that we're supposed to come together and in that communion, in that community, we encourage each other towards good deeds, towards right living, towards our best life.
What we got?
Throwing the brats in. Once the cabbage starts to wilt, we just won't cover them suckers up. And so we start to see this complete picture of community, of communion, that it was so important to God to be in community with us, that even after the fall in the garden and the separation due to sin, he already had a plan in place to bring us back together in communion.
All right, there we go.
Even this idea of communion harkens back to the Old Testament, the prophet, the spokesperson for God, Jeremiah, spoke of this day that would be coming, where we wouldn't have to be told what was right and what was wrong, but that God's law would be written on our hearts, that we wouldn't have to go around teaching people about God, that everyone would just know him, like you lived in your neighborhood, in your community.
Added some garlic.
Probably need some salt.
If the kids aren't eating it.
Put some red pepper flakes.
Yeah.
Parts are supposed to be kind of steamed, so seal that cabbage steam, that cabbage air. Seal that in there.
What do you call it?
Cooking in the cabbage farts. All right. Some chicken.
We'll cut that out. Now talk about this. We discovered this just the other day.
Overestimated how many rotisserie chickens we needed from Sam's. It's easy to do. They're delicious. And so we had a little bit of left over. And it makes a pretty good chicken Alfredo. If you throw some bacon in there with it, some onion. So that's what we're going to turn this into. We weren't ever meant to live alone. We weren't ever meant to live separated. And though there are times, for safety reasons, we have to keep ourselves distant, we have to remember those words in the writer of Hebrews: not forsake, not give up on that gathering together. So I want to encourage you. I know you've heard it on Sunday mornings already, but I think it's worth saying again. Think about joining a small group, and that can look like so many different things. I know there's already been a group of guys get together and go play golf, and for some people that's very encouraging. For others, I know it can be very frustrating. But getting together in community, it could look like a Sunday morning watch party. A few people have mentioned that they enjoy getting together to watch the live stream church service. I think that's awesome. So that you're not just watching it alone, but that you're sharing in that experience and lifting each other up. And then next month in September, we'll be starting, City Point will be starting the small groups there. And I encourage you, they're going to be covering a lot of different topics, a lot of different interests, and find one that works for you, because it's important. It's important to commune. It's important to have that community. Oh, and then finally, when you get together with that smallest community, just your family, and you eat a meal together, which I would very, very much encourage you to do. Eat a meal together as a family. I want to say that would be a good time for, as you break bread, in this case chicken, that you take a moment to remember the sacrifice, that price that was paid so that us exiles could be back in community with the divine, because it is the Spirit of Christ growing inside of me that connects with the Spirit of Christ growing inside of you, and that's what community is really all about. I think that this conversation about communion and community is one that we could keep having. So I would love to hear your thoughts. If you wanna leave a comment about what community means to you, and I look forward to maybe doing something like this again.